So we're going to look at taking a double exposure, and we're going to be using Snapseed in order to go ahead and combine those two images together. So the one that we're going to try right now is going to be a levitation effect. So we're basically going to need to have a camera on a tripod, and a really important part is that the first thing that we do is we need the background picture. So we need exactly what we want the background to look like so that it's going to stay still. And then we need it to stay on a tripod. That's one of the reasons I had you guys make tripods, is we need the picture, the frame, to stay exactly the same. We don't want it to shift or move. So once we get it set up, we want to take our picture with the background, and then we're going to bring the subject into the picture, and then we're going to put those two together. So let's take a quick look at the setup. All right, so over here we've got the camera set up, and I'm just going to do a couple of things on the camera just to make sure that it's going to be working properly. So the first thing, I want to double check my composition and the framing and stuff. Once I have it exactly the way that I want the frame, I'm going to click and hold on here. That'll lock the exposure. And then the other thing that I want to do is also, change the brightness maybe a little bit more like that, so this window blows out. And I want that to be locked because I don't want it to shift when I step in the frame. I don't want it to change the exposure. So I want that part pretty much locked in place. All right, so now we've got that. I'm just going to take the first picture, so this will be our background picture. And then let me go get set up for what we want the second picture to be. The other thing I'm going to want to do is probably put this onto a self timer for 10 seconds. So when we are ready, that'll give me a couple of seconds to get ready. Okay. So then I'm going to go ahead and replace this stool with the ladder. Okay, yeah. That'll work. So the idea is that I'll be leaning over the ladder for that second shot. So this is on self timer, so we'll go ahead and just take the picture. It makes sense to have shoes on. All right, and then we just need to go inside of Snapseed and see how to combine those together. So let's go ahead and jump inside of Snapseed. And I'm just going to go ahead and open up an image. So let's take a look here. And so I went and took two pictures for this project. You can see I've already been kind of playing around with it. So let's take a look here. So I'm going to take this picture to start with. All right, so this is just a picture of my living room. And then now that we've got that open, we're going to go ahead and go into Tools. And then if we scroll down to the bottom here at Tools, there's one that says Double Exposure. So let's see if you guys can see that. Okay, Double Exposure. So I'm just going to go ahead and click there. Now, when I come into double exposure, the first thing I'm going to need to do in this case is to select that second picture. So I'm going to click here at this bottom, right down here at the very bottom. It's add a picture, so I'm going to click there. And I'm going to go back into my recents, and then I'm going to pick the picture of me with the ladder, right? So that's the other second picture. Now, when it first comes in, there's a couple of options. So the first thing I can do is I could bring it to 100% transparency, right? So now I've got that picture. Or if I bring it to 0% opacity, then I've got just the background picture, right? So it's some blend of these two, right? Now, that's what that opacity one, and that's that bottom one down here at the bottom right. The other one here is the way that those could blend together. So there's things like overlay and saturation or subtract or add. We're not going to look at those right now, but we'll be coming back to that. So right now I'm going to leave this at 100% with that picture. And then I'm going to hit the check mark down here at the bottom. Now, now it just looks like that first picture, right? So what we actually have to do, it's right up here at the very, very top. It looks like a little like return arrow or a go back with layers. So we're going to click on that. And then it's got several options. I could revert at this point, but I don't want to. I'm going to do this one here. It says View Edits. So I'm going to click on View Edits. Then this little stack appears. And so we can go into the double exposure edit. And so it's got sliders, which is what I was just doing. But now I actually want to be selective. So now that I go into the selective brush, it right now has, basically just the background picture. So what I want to do is start to reveal the picture of me, right? So if I paint here, just with my finger, I can start to bring in that picture of me, right? And if I painted all of this, right, then, the ladder would come in there as well. So down here at the bottom, I've got a little like slider or toggle, and right now it's at 100% double exposure. So I'm going to bring this down to 0% double exposure. And I want to do some really detailed work. So I want to be really careful along that selection line. So I'm going to pinch and zoom, and I'm going to zoom all the way in as close as I can possibly get. That way the brush will be smaller relative. And then what I'm going to do now, I'm at 0% double exposure. I'm going to start to paint. And this part, I'm just going to be really careful. I'm going to go right along the edge of where, like my shirt and pants and stuff are, and just take away that area that is the support, right? And I'm just going to slowly kind of paint. And right now I'm just going to do a really good job right along the edge, and then I can zoom out and get the other bigger stuff. If I need to move the screen again from the other day, 2 fingers, that will help me drag. Now there's kind of this wonkiness here, like where part of it was hanging down, so I'm actually going to take some of that part out as well and just decide to kind of feather away that part so that it seems a little more natural in the way that the shirt is hanging. Okay. So then now I've got that, and then maybe there's just one little part right up here that I need to get. Kind of take away. There we go. And then I can zoom out just a little bit, and then I can paint with slightly bigger brush to get rid of this other part. And again, I didn't need to bring all of this in, but I wanted you to be able to see. And so because the camera and the tripod stayed the same on both of those pictures, as I'm painting across, like you notice, like there's no difference in the there's no offset in the lines. If you're not very careful and you are moving the camera or shifting it slightly, then there's going to be this like kind of effect where there's a little bit of a offset between those, and you may have to do some stuff to kind of align it. So I think I've got all of that cleaned up over there. Let's just double check. I'm not missing anything over there. Okay, so that all looks good. So now if I zoom out, we can now see that the ladder is now completely disappeared, and it looks as though I am floating, right? Now, I'm going to say check to that because that's my double exposure. Now, I might decide now that they're kind of combined together that I might want to do something to, like the brightness and things. So if I go in here, I'm just going to go ahead and go back. And now that I'm back, now that these two are together, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of work, on the overall brightness and things, right? Because I think this part's maybe a little bit too dark. So I'm going to go into Tools, and I'm going to just tune the image a little bit. So I'm going to go to those sliders. I'm going to start with shadows, and maybe and you don't have to go all the way up here. You can also just drag here, so I can take those shadows up or down. So I'm just going to open up those shadows just a little bit. I don't want those highlights to blow out too much more, so I'm going to go highlights, maybe bring down the highlights just a little bit so that they don't blow out. But without going, I don't want them to be gray, so I want those to be kind of bright. So just, it might just be a small amount. I might want it a little bit warmer, maybe just a little bit. Just depends on the effect that we're kind of going for. Maybe just go with overall brightness, maybe just a little bit brighter too, just to kind of open that up just a little bit. There we go. Okay, check. And then other things I might want to do, I'm going to go ahead and go in with a selective brush. I'm going to add some temperature. I think it'd be nice if this was kind of like a little bit more warm, so I'm going to maybe do temperature up. And so I'm going to just kind of paint over in this area, just a little bit, just add a little bit more warmth, kind of maybe coming off of that I might decide, it's a little bit too much in this area. I can kind of bring that down to 5. Or if I want to erase, I can also take some off of there. If some of those places become a little bit too bright. Other things I may need to do, might want to go in, I might want to add a small amount of a vignette or something like that. Again, might want to darken down those edges just a little bit to help add some drama. I want that inner part though to be a little bit brighter so that it maintains some of that brightness in that in the face and in that background area. So you can see there was our original, and here's our levitated photo. So what you guys decide to do with that, that's kind of up to you. Kind of experiment and play with how you can manipulate that part, and then go ahead and export. And again, we've got a couple of options. If I want a JPEG to post to my website, I'm gonna want to go ahead and do that permanent changes. If I want to save it so that I have copies and things like that, so I can edit it later, I can either just save this as a new file, or I can save it as a copy. So I'll just go ahead and say save a copy. And then for my website, I might want to also export it. There we go. So then that's ready to be shared.